Join me, and together we can rule over this land with the power of the relic." Akosua recoiled at the offer, her heart filled with revulsion. "Never. I will never betray my people." Juma's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold anger. "So be it, but know this, Akosua. By rejecting me, you have sealed your fate." With that, he lunged at her, his serpentine body moving with terrifying speed. But Akosua was ready. In the heart of the African savanna, amidst vast sunlit plains and shimmering rivers, lay the vibrant village of Zambesi. Encircled by towering baobab trees, the village was a haven of tradition, spirituality, and community. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, and their lives were governed by the rhythms of the earth and the wisdom of their ancestors. Zambesi was a place where stories of magic and wonder were whispered around fires, where the past and present danced together in a delicate balance. Akosua, a young woman celebrated for her beauty and sharp intellect, was one of Zambesi's brightest lights. Her skin, the color of polished mahogany, glowed in the sunlight, and her eyes sparkled with wisdom beyond her years. Akosua's parents, Nana Kofi and Mame Efua, were respected elders, and their home was a beacon of guidance in the village. As Akosua's wedding approached, the village buzzed with excitement. The young woman was to be married to a mysterious stranger named Juma, who had arrived in Zambesi one warm afternoon, draped in exquisite fabrics and adorned with intricate jewelry. His arrival was marked by a sense of awe and curiosity, and his tales of distant lands captivated everyone who listened. But as the village prepared for the grand celebration, a sense of unease began to creep into Akosua's heart. She had grown up hearing tales of spirits and supernatural beings that could disguise themselves as humans. And though Juma's charm and wealth impressed her parents, Akosua couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. As the days passed, Akosua's unease grew. She sought the counsel of her parents, but they were enchanted by Juma's eloquence and the wealth he promised to bring into their lives. The older villagers, however, whispered among themselves, exchanging glances of concern. They spoke of ancient legends and strange omens that had appeared since Juma's arrival. Crows gathering in large numbers, a sudden drought, and a strange chill in the air despite the warm season. Akosua found herself drawn to the village elder, Amani, who had a reputation for her knowledge of the old ways. Amani lived on the outskirts of the village, in a small hut surrounded by herbs and ancient symbols. She welcomed Akosua with a knowing smile, as if she had been expecting her. "My child," Amani said, her voice soft and raspy. "The spirits have been restless since the stranger arrived. They whispered to me in the wind, warning of a great danger." Akosua's heart pounded in her chest as she listened to Amani's words. "What do you mean, Elder Amani? What danger? The stranger Juma is not what he seems. The spirits say he is a serpent in disguise, come to take something precious from us." A chill ran down Akosua's spine. She had heard stories of serpents that could take on human form, but she had never believed them to be true. But why would he come here? What does he want? Amani shook her head, her eyes filled with sorrow. "There is a relic hidden in this village, a powerful artifact that has been protected by our people for generations. It is said to grant immense power and immortality to whoever possesses it. The spirits fear that Juma seeks this relic, and that he will stop at nothing to obtain it." Akosua's mind raced as she processed this revelation. Could it be true? Was Juma really a serpent in disguise, sent to deceive her and steal the relic? The thought filled her with dread, but she knew she had to act quickly to protect her village. The night before her wedding, Akosua was plagued by dark and vivid dreams. She found herself wandering through the village, but everything was distorted and twisted. The baobab trees loomed over her, their branches reaching out like claws. The rivers ran red with blood, and the once bright skies were filled with ominous clouds. In the dream, she saw Juma standing at the edge of the village, his face obscured by shadows. As she approached him, his form began to change. His skin rippled and shifted, revealing glistening scales beneath. His eyes turned into slits, cold and reptilian. Akosua tried to scream, but no sound escaped her lips. She turned to run, but the ground beneath her feet crumbled, sending her plummeting into darkness. She awoke with a start, drenched in sweat, her heart pounding in her chest. The images from the dream clung to her mind, refusing to fade. She knew deep in her soul that it had been more than just a nightmare. It was a warning. Determined to uncover the truth, Akosua decided to confront Juma before the wedding. She needed to know who, or what, he really was. But as the sun rose and the village came alive with the sounds of celebration, she realized how difficult it would be to act on her suspicions without causing alarm. On the day of the wedding, the village was a spectacle of color and sound. Brightly colored banners and intricate tapestries adorned every home, and the air was filled with the rhythmic beats of drums and the melodies of traditional songs. Villagers danced in preparation, their movements a blend of grace and exuberance. Akosua, dressed in her stunning traditional gown, adorned with intricate beadwork in gold, looked every bit the bride. Her hair, a cascade of dark curls, was adorned with delicate ornaments that shimmered in the sunlight. But beneath her composed exterior, her heart was in turmoil. As she walked toward the ceremonial grounds, she spotted Juma standing among the villagers. He looked regal in his ceremonial attire, a striking blend of colors and patterns that spoke of his exotic origins. But when their eyes met, Akosua felt a coldness in his gaze that sent shivers down her spine. The ceremony began with great reverence. The village elders performed the rituals with solemnity, and the air was filled with the sound of chanting and drumming. But as the couple exchanged vows, Akosua's mind was elsewhere, racing with the possibilities of what she had learned. As the sun set and the wedding feast began, Akosua's unease grew. She watched Juma closely, noting how he occasionally slipped away from the festivities, only to return with an unsettling calmness. Her mind was troubled by the visions of her dreams, and she knew she could no longer ignore them. That night, after the celebrations had died down and the village had fallen asleep, Akosua decided to take matters into her own hands. She waited until Juma had retired to their home before slipping away into the shadows, making her way to Amani's hut. The elder was awake, as if expecting her. Akosua explained her fears, and Amani listened intently before handing her a small, ancient book. "This book contains the knowledge of our ancestors," Amani said. "It speaks of the serpents that have plagued our land in the past, and the signs that reveal their true nature. Use it wisely, Akosua." With the book in hand, Akosua returned home, her heart heavy with the burden of what she might discover. As she flipped through the pages, her eyes fell upon an illustration that made her blood run cold. A serpent with scales that gleamed in the moonlight, its eyes filled with malice. The description beneath it confirmed her worst fears. Juma was indeed a serpent in disguise. determined to confront Juma and uncover the truth. Akosua waited until the village was quiet and everyone had retired for the night. She found Juma in their home, sitting calmly as if nothing were amiss. Her heart pounded in her chest as she approached him, the ancient book clutched tightly in her hands. "Juma," she began, her voice trembling with a mixture of fear and resolve. "There is something I need to ask you." Juma looked up, his expression unreadable. "What is it, Akosua? You seem troubled." Taking a deep breath, Akosua held out the book, her eyes locked on his. "I know what you are, Juma. I know you're not human. You're a serpent, here to steal the relic that our village has protected for generations." For a moment, there was silence. Then Juma's expression shifted from surprise to something darker, more sinister. A cold, calculating smile spread across his lips as he slowly rose to his feet. "So, you've discovered the truth," he said, his voice low and menacing. "I must admit, I'm impressed. Most humans would have been too blinded by greed or fear to see what was right in front of them." As Akosua watched in horror, Juma's form began to change. His skin rippled and shimmered, revealing the scales beneath. His eyes, once warm and inviting, now gleamed with a malevolent intelligence. He was no longer the charming stranger she had agreed to marry. He was a creature of darkness, a serpent with a hunger for power. "The relic you speak of," Juma continued, his voice now a hissing whisper, "is the key to unimaginable power. My clan has sought it for centuries, and now that I found it, I will not be stopped." Akosua felt a surge of panic, but she forced herself to remain calm. "You won't get away with this, Juma. The village will stop you." Juma laughed, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "The village is no match for me. But you, Akosua, you could be useful. Join me, and together we can rule over this land with the power of the relic." Akosua recoiled at the offer, her heart filled with revulsion. "Never. I will never betray my people." Juma's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold anger. "So be it, but know this, Akosua. By rejecting me, you have sealed your fate." With that, he lunged at her, his serpentine body moving with terrifying speed. But Akosua was ready. She threw the book at him, distracting him long enough to make her escape. She ran through the village, her heart pounding in her chest as she sought out the elders to warn them of the impending danger. Akosua burst into the home of the village elders, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she recounted her encounter with Juma. The elders listened in stunned silence, their faces growing more grave with each passing moment. When she finished, the eldest of them, a man named Kwame, spoke in a voice heavy with sorrow. "We feared this day might come. The legends speak of serpents who would seek the relic, but we hoped that our village would remain hidden from their eyes. But we are not defenseless," said another elder, a woman named Ya. "The relic is protected by powerful magic, and as long as we stand together, we can prevent Juma from claiming it." The elders began to prepare for the battle to come. They gathered the village's strongest warriors and instructed them in the ancient ways of combat and protection. The spiritual leaders performed rituals to invoke the protection of their ancestors, calling upon the spirits to aid them in their fight against the serpent. Akosua, though frightened, refused to stand idly by. She joined the warriors, her determination to protect her village driving her forward. As the villagers prepared for the inevitable confrontation, the air was thick with tension and fear, but also with a sense of unity and purpose. The night before the battle, the elders gathered in the center of the village for a final ritual. They built a large fire, around which they chanted prayers and offerings to the spirits. Akosua stood among them. her heart pounding as she watched the flames rise into the sky. As the ritual reached its climax, a strange wind began to blow through the village, carrying with it whispers that only Akosua could hear. The voices of the ancestors spoke to her, their words filling her with a deep sense of purpose and resolve. "You are the key, Akosua," they whispered. "Only you can unlock the true power of the relic and protect it from those who would misuse it." Akosua felt a surge of energy course through her body, as if the spirits were filling her with their strength. She knew then that she had a role to play in the coming battle, one that would determine the fate of her village and the relic that they had sworn to protect. The following morning, as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the village of Zambesi was eerily quiet. The villagers, armed with spears, shields, and the blessings of their ancestors, stood ready for the battle that lay ahead. The air was thick with anticipation, and every rustle of the leaves or distant animal cry made hearts race with fear. Akosua stood at the forefront with the warriors, her pulse quickening, with the realization that this could be the end for her and her people. But she pushed the fear aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. Juma would come for the relic, and she would be ready. As the sun rose higher in the sky, a low, menacing hiss echoed through the village. The sound sent chills down everyone's spines, and they gripped their weapons tighter. Out of the shadows, Juma emerged in his full serpentine form, his scales shimmering in the morning light. He was not alone. Behind him, slithering from the depths of the earth, came more serpents, their eyes glowing with the same malevolent hunger as their leader. The villagers gasped in horror at the sight, but the elders raised their hands, chanting ancient prayers to bolster their courage. The warriors formed a protective circle around the sacred site where the relic was hidden, their faces set with determination. Juma's eyes locked onto Akosua, and a cruel smile spread across his face. "You cannot win, Akosua," he hissed. "The relic will be mine, and your village will fall." "We will not let you take it," Akosua replied, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. "This is our home, and we will protect it with our lives." With a roar, the battle began. Juma and his serpents charged forward, their movements swift and deadly. The villagers met them head-on, their spears and shields clashing with the serpent's scales. The air was filled with the sounds of battle, cries of pain, the clang of metal, and the hiss of serpents. Akosua fought with all her strength, her movements guided by the spirits who whispered in her ear. She dodged Juma's attacks, striking back with a ferocity that surprised even herself. Around her, the warriors fought bravely, holding their ground despite the overwhelming odds. But as the battle raged on, it became clear that the serpents were too strong. One by one, the villagers began to fall, their bodies crumpling to the ground. Akosua felt a pang of despair as she watched her friends and family being cut down. But she refused to give up. "You cannot win, Juma," she shouted, her voice filled with defiance. "I will stop you, no matter what it takes." Juma's eyes narrowed, and he lunged at her with terrifying speed. Akosua barely had time to react, but she managed to dodge his attack, her heart pounding with fear. She knew she couldn't keep this up forever. She had to find a way to end the battle. And quickly, as the battle raged on, Akosua realized that the key to defeating Juma lay not in brute strength, but in the power of the relic. The whispers of the ancestors echoed in her mind, urging her to embrace her destiny and unlock the relic's true potential. Summoning all her courage, Akosua broke away from the fight and ran toward the sacred site where the relic was hidden. She could feel Juma's eyes on her, but she pushed the fear aside, focusing instead on the task at hand. The sacred site was a small ancient temple, hidden deep within the heart of the village. It was a place of great power, where the relic had been kept safe for generations. As Akosua approached, she could feel the energy emanating from the temple, filling her with a sense of awe and reverence. Taking a deep breath, Akosua stepped inside the temple. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the walls were adorned with ancient symbols and carvings. In the center of the room, resting on a stone pedestal, was the relic, a small, intricately carved object that seemed to pulse with a light of its own. Akosua hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. She could feel the weight of the ancestors' gaze upon her, urging her to act. Summoning all her courage, she reached out and placed her hand on the relic. The moment her fingers touched the stone, a surge of energy shot through her body. The world around her seemed to blur and fade, and she found herself standing in a vast, endless void. Before her stood the spirits of her ancestors, their forms shimmering with a golden light. "You have done well, Akosua," one of the spirits said, his voice echoing in the void. "But the battle is not yet won. The power of the relic is within you, but you must learn to control it." Akosua nodded, her heart filled with determination. "I will do whatever it takes to protect my village," she said, her voice steady. The spirits began to chant, their voices blending together in a haunting melody. As they did, Akosua felt the power of the relic coursing through her veins, filling her with a strength she had never known. She could feel the energy building within her, growing stronger with each passing moment. When the chanting finally stopped, the spirits looked at her with pride. "You are ready, Akosua," one of them said. "Go and protect your people." With a nod, Akosua opened her eyes, finding herself back in the temple. The relic was still in her hand, but now it pulsed with a bright golden light. She could feel the power within it, and she knew that she had been given a great responsibility. Clutching the relic tightly, Akosua stepped out of the temple and back into the battle. The sight that greeted her was one of chaos and destruction. The village was in ruins, and the warriors were struggling to hold back the serpents. But Akosua was no longer afraid. She could feel the power of the relic flowing through her, filling her with a sense of purpose and resolve. With the relic's power coursing through her, Akosua felt invincible. She raised the artifact high above her head, and the golden light intensified, casting radiant beams that cut through the shadows of despair. The villagers, seeing their leader infused with newfound strength, rallied around her, their spirits ignited with hope. "Together!" Akosua cried, her voice ringing out above the tumult. "We fight for our home, for our people, and for our ancestors." As if responding to her call, the villagers formed a united front, their fear transforming into fierce determination. Akosua, at the forefront, harnessed the relic's energy, and with a surge of power, she unleashed a wave of light that engulfed the serpents. The radiance was blinding, a pure force of ancestral magic that pushed back against the darkness. Juma recoiled, his serpentine form twisting and writhing as he struggled against the light. "You think you can defeat me with mere magic?" he hissed, his voice laced with fury. "I am ancient. I am powerful. You are nothing without your deceit," Akosua shouted, channeling her energy into a focused beam aimed directly at him. The light struck Juma, causing him to scream in rage and pain, his form flickering between human and serpent as he fought to maintain his disguise. In that moment, Akosua felt a connection to her ancestors, their strength flowing through her like a mighty river. She summoned all her courage and love for her village, focusing her thoughts on the relic's purpose. "Spirits of my ancestors, guide me." The relic pulsed with energy, and the light expanded, enveloping Juma completely. With a final anguished roar, the serpent was consumed by the brilliance, his form disintegrating into a cloud of darkness that dissipated into the air. The remaining serpents, witnessing their leader's demise, faltered and retreated into the shadows, their menace banished. As the last of the serpents fled, the village fell into a stunned silence. The once chaotic scene transformed into a moment of reverent calm as the villagers turned to Akosua, awe reflected in their eyes. She lowered the relic, feeling its warmth fade, yet the sense of empowerment remained. "Elder Amani, Kwame," she called, her voice breaking the silence. "Is the village safe?" The elders stepped forward, their expressions a mix of relief and admiration. "You have saved us, Akosua," Amani said, her voice filled with pride. "The relic is safe in your hands, and so are our people." Akosua felt tears of joy prick at her eyes as the villagers began to cheer, celebrating their victory. They gathered around her, embracing her as their hero, the one who had faced darkness and emerged stronger. In the following days, the village worked together to heal the wounds inflicted by the battle. They rebuilt homes, shared stories of bravery, and honored those who had fallen. Akosua took her place as a leader, guiding her people with wisdom and compassion, drawing on the strength she had discovered within herself. As the sun set over Zambesi, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Akosua stood before the sacred site where the relic was kept. She felt a deep connection to the land and its spirits, knowing that she would always protect the village from harm. Months passed, and the village flourished once again. Akosua became a beacon of hope, leading ceremonies that honored the spirits of their ancestors. She often visited Amani, learning more about the old ways and the stories that shaped their culture. One evening, as Akosua prepared for a ritual under the stars, she felt a familiar presence nearby. Turning, she saw Juma's spirit, transformed and radiant. No longer a serpent, but a figure filled with light. He appeared remorseful, a flicker of humanity lingering in his eyes. "Akosua," he spoke softly, his voice gentle. "I was blinded by my ambition, and for that, I am sorry. I was not meant to be a destroyer." Akosua regarded him with a mixture of compassion and caution. "You chose darkness, Juma, but the path to redemption is still open to you. Use your knowledge to protect rather than to deceive." He nodded, gratitude washing over his face. "I will honor my promise. I will help others understand the balance between power and responsibility." With that, Juma's spirit faded into the night, leaving Akosua with a sense of closure. She knew that the battle against darkness was not just about defeating evil, but also about fostering understanding and forgiveness. As the stars twinkled overhead, Akosua felt a deep sense of peace. The village of Zambesi had overcome great challenges, and together they would face whatever came next. She understood now that true strength lay not just in the power of the relic, but in the love and unity of her people. Years later, as Akosua stood before a gathering of villagers, sharing the tales of their ancestors, she reflected on how far they had come. The relic remained a symbol of their strength, a reminder of their victory over darkness. And as she looked into the eyes of the next generation, she felt hopeful for the future. "Remember," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "The stories of our past shape our present and guide our future. Together, we are stronger, and we will protect the light that shines within us all." The villagers erupted in cheers, their voices echoing across the savanna, a testament to their resilience and unity. And under the vast African sky, Akosua knew that as long as they stood together, Zambesi would always remain a sanctuary of hope, tradition, and love.
Subscribe for more exciting African folktales, and thanks for watching. Bye, my beautiful family.